Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Candidates 2024, the most important chess tournament of the year. It is round number 12 out of 14. We are in our final 3 rounds. Jan Nepomniachtchi leads with 7, but Gukesh and Hikaru are on 6.5, and Fabiano Caruana is on 6. It is so close, it is so tense, and every single round, the games and storylines get more exciting. Round 12 delivered. Before I get into the games today, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. Folks, we know that chess is a mental game, but to be honest, so is a lot of life. Many people are going through a constant whirlwind of thoughts, doubts, insecurities, anxieties, whatever that may be, all up here. And some people might not feel comfortable opening up about what's going on in their mind for fear of being judged by other people, or they don't want to be a burden to loved ones in their life. Well, therapy can help. Therapy gives you a safe, comfortable environment to open up about the things that are going on inside your mind. And I've gone to therapy before. In my case, it wasn't necessarily that I was worried about the reaction or response of anybody in my family if I opened up. Everybody already had a lot on their plate, and I didn't want to distract anybody from their already very long list of responsibilities. Now, BetterHelp makes therapy extremely simple. You can speak to a therapist on a phone call, video chat, or even just through plain messaging. You can do it however you feel most comfortable. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. All you gotta do is visit betterhelp.com/GothamChess or choose GothamChess at sign up, and that'll get you a special discount on your first month. All right, now let's get back to the video. Thank you as always to the handsome and inimitable sponsored Gotham. My friends, it is Hikaru versus Alireza Firouzja. Firouzja with an up and down tournament. Hikaru has won his last couple of games, and the last time that they played, Hikaru won with black. He plays e4, and the Frenchman plays the French. This is a rare opening at the candidates level. In fact, back in 2017, AlphaZero, if you don't know the AlphaZero chess AI storyline, watch this video, then go to the YouTube search bar and type in AlphaZero Stockfish. It'll send you down an incredible rabbit hole. But it proved that the French was not particularly great. There's a lot of lines in the French defense where white can get some sort of advantage. But the line that Hikaru chooses against Alireza is not the classical line, it's not the advance, it's not even the positional knight d2. Hikaru takes. The exchange French is what you play if you like to drink room temperature water on a hot day. All right? It's a sign of a strange person. I know there's like health benefits, cold versus whatever, but it's a weird choice. It's a weird choice. It's like a person who just likes to eat bread. Nothing on it, no butter, no jam, no preservative, nothing. But nowadays, with the usage of computers, people have started creating some practical difficulties. And so Hikaru plays this move c4. And basically, the best way for black to play oftentimes is allow white to play c5, and now there's a degree of imbalance. In fact, you may remember that there was a game at this very candidates where Hikaru was playing with the white pieces, and that game looked like this. Does this look familiar with pawn coming to c4? Well, this is the same thing, but the other way around, and white is playing up a tempo. Bishop to e7. Now, Hikaru here plays a move I've never seen in my life. It also looks like the dumbest move ever. He plays queen a4 check. Why would you give a queen check for no reason? We always tell beginners, I always tell beginners, stop giving these checks that don't accomplish anything, because now you just get hit with a bishop and you have to come back. Well, first of all, he's taking Alireza out of any comfort zone. He's also making Alireza have a bishop on d7. Black very well have wanted to move the bishop out and then put the knight on d7 or put the knight on c6, and now he has to deal with the inability to put the knight on the bishop on f5, and furthermore the inability to put the bishop here because white just goes here. So there are some practical difficulties after the queen coming back to c2. Both sides develop their pieces. Knight c3. And now the massive question in this position is whether or not black can play the move knight to g4. He could have played it on the last move before it would have lost the pawn. But I think Hikaru had some sort of prep ready, like bishop to f4. But it definitely is possible. And then black can immediately put pressure on the center and things like that. But knight c6 is what he chooses, and b6. And Hikaru's still in his prep. But I think he spent a little bit of time here. Maybe he was just remembering. Maybe at this point he sort of was just trying to make sure he didn't screw something up. Taking is not what he wants. Taking just opens up lines for black. Not that, but this one. And b6, he plays bishop e2. Alireza now jumps in with the knight, forces the queen to move, threatens this move knight c2. It actually looks like black is just in a lot of trouble. White is in a lot of trouble. Like, look at this. right? Like, what is going on in the white position? You stupid, you get punished for playing queen a4, queen c2, queen d2. Yeah, Hikaru just says, no, you can't have my bishop, bishop to f4. What? Yeah. As it so happens, he's just giving up a pawn. Now, this is still the top line of the engine. I just want to tell you, everything Hikaru has found his way to is the top line of the computer. Losing this pawn on c5, being down a clean pawn, and then castling is the top line of the engine. Because now black has sort of overextended. It's like in the Avengers movie, all that for a drop of blood, right? Now, white is going to send an avalanche right back at the black position. It's going to be a four-punch combination, like Cerrone Miles Jury. Great highlight, by the way. Rook to e8. Now, knight f2 is possible. Hikaru plays this move a3, and here Alireza can uncork like a 7-piece combination. Knight f2, bishop f2, rook e2, literally sacrificing the entire house, knight to d3, and he can go for this endgame, but oh, excuse me, not that. You would take with the queen. I actually don't even know what the difference is. I guess c5, apparently, and if you take like this, there is no c5. There you go. You would take it with the queen. Very important. But this is the idea. And basically, white gets 2 knights for a rook, even though black has 2 extra pawns, but white is better. This could have happened. Instead of that, Alireza plays d4, an equally exciting move, shoves the pawn all the way to d3. Hikaru has to play... What? In this position, the best move was just to bring the bishop back calmly to d1 and wait. Clearly, Hikaru didn't like that very much. He didn't like that very much, and instead, he commits something totally different. There's a move here, rook e2, which is very scary. After takes, the best move in this position you can take, but you can actually also take the bishop, allow a queen, and you're doing fine, which is sort of deranged. Instead, Hikaru loses his advantage. And after de2, rook e1, black puts the knight on d3. Everything in the white position is hanging. Everything is targeted. f2 is targeted. I don't know why Hikaru would have gone for this. Now he has to take another free bishop. And maybe he had calculated knight e1, and maybe that was the intention from the start. Maybe all of this was the intention from the start, because Alireza did not think a long time on knight e1. But the best move here is queen d7 first. Waiting, threatening 2 pieces, and probably they both missed it. Now the knight comes to safety, and now you take. And the difference is that if white does this, rook e4 is just winning now, because you threaten everything. So before he played the very obvious knight takes rook, Alireza needed to include queen d7. And I think they just both missed this idea. Way back there. So I think when Hikaru calculated rook c5, he saw this forcing sequence of moves, and you can see from the time spend, Alireza took his rook. Nobody really thought much beyond that. Knight takes e1, we go to this endgame, and Hikaru is probably just winning. Rook d8, bishop c3, he just has to get rid of this pawn. He will trade the knight. He may trade the rook, but not right away. It's good for white to have a little bit of help for the rook. f3, king f2, you win this pawn. You just slowly go on to win the endgame. Knight to e3 play by Alireza. Hikaru grabs a pawn, threatening the rook. Both rooks are hanging. Rook to e7, and now it is going to be smooth sailing. He slowly improves his position. He puts the king on f2. He's making maximum improvements. Apparently, king f2 is a blunder, because black can sack the rook, which is unbelievable, and then check and go here and here. And if rook c3, rook d7, and knight d3 is coming. Completely nuts. Hikaru plays king f2. Alireza misses it. Now knight to d5, and the construction is created. That's it. Hikaru is completely winning. Knight to d3, rook back to e8. And Hikaru ruins the advantage again. This is so crazy. He is half a point behind Jan Nepomniachtchi. He needs to win. He's missed a couple chances this game. The defensive construction here for white against this was rook c7 check and the knight coming to f4. So for example, regardless, you can even play bishop d2, but let's say knight to f4, king h6, and something like the bishop coming back to the e1 square. So like rook c7, king g8, knight to f4, knight b2, knight e1. And this holds the black position completely. Then you take on h5, then you go on to win. Hikaru goes here, Alireza plays knight b2, and suddenly Hikaru is probably no longer winning. in one of the craziest turn of events of this tournament, Black is just going to hold everything. And now, unfortunately, look at their time. Look at the time. Look at the time. They made the 40th move, so they both get 30 minutes. Black is going to defend this pawn. Even if White wins the pawn, like Rook A5, take, take, this is probably just the draw. King F7, Knight E2, G6. It's probably just the draw. Probably. Probably. But White still has winning chances. But on the 41st move of the game, Alireza Firouzja kicked the window out and went G5. And that weakens his king an irreparable amount. It weakens his pawns an irreparable amount. And Hikaru got thrown a little bit of a lifeline. I don't know what Alireza had calculated here. I don't know what he thought that he had. But he literally loses the game immediately. Knight D6, Knight C4, the knight comes back. And this is winning because these pawns you cannot protect. In the other line that I showed you, Black's pawns stay together. But in the game itself, the pawns fall. And now White will win them both. And Alireza Firouzja resigns. And Hikaru has 7.5. And he is back in the running for first place. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is absolutely, like, this is nuts. He has won 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. Now, Fabiano, Caruana, Vidit, Gujarati. Vidit yesterday lost probably the heartbreaker game of the year. Winning a couple of times against Nepo. A major question is, can the surging Fabiano be held off by Vidit? Will he overpress? This one, an Italian, fitting. Bishop C5. A mainline Italian where White plays the gioco piano. Bishop back to A7. We have H3. And now the main line, which has been seen in a handful of games actually already at this tournament. B4, Bishop E6, take, take, Queen C2. This was seen in the game Fabiano Gukesh, which is at this point feels like 30 years ago. But Vidit plays a sideline here. He brings the knight to E7. So the idea is to go for a quick C6, D5 and put the knight on the G6 square. Fabi has played like this. A lot of modern day grandmasters play like this. And very quickly, Fabi does something really clever here, by the way, which actually goes on to prove to be a pretty strong point in the position. This approach by Black is designed to play C6, D5 like this. And since Black is going to play C6, he's going to have 3 pawns on light squares, which means the dark squares are going to be up for grabs, which is why Fabi plays A5. It's a very interesting idea. So now we see C6 from Vidit, and the players clash in the center. I mean, you talk about gladiators, like you talk about old school, like look at this. I mean, they are just about to beat each other up in the center of the board. But usually what happens when this happens, a lot of pieces get traded, like you can see here. And now you just kind of play the next phase of the game. So both center pawns are gone. Pair of rooks is gone. A pair of knights is gone. Again, there's a little bit of control over here, but the pawns are the exact same. A, B, C, F, G, H. That's not me doing the alphabet. I know that there's, more letters. And now it's kind of on to this next phase of the game. Now, White has a microscopic advantage. He has slightly better pressure. He's going to push Black back a little bit, but it's probably just going to be a draw. Now Vidit needs to choose which way to move the knight, and he chooses slightly inaccurately. I think he wanted to go to F5. Maybe he also wanted to go to G6 in the future, but it was better to just go here. It's not like a pretty move. Sorry, it's not a special move. There's nothing interesting about this move, but it was probably the best move. And he even has ideas to sacrifice later on H3, but he goes here, and suddenly Vidit is now under pressure on the dark squares. Very nice technique from Fabiano. And at this point, I think Vidit sensed something was going to go on with his king. So he started moving it. Like, Vidit sat here and was like, wait a minute, I can't do too much. Like, I can't do too much. Can't move any pawns. I can't really move my knight because it's under pressure. I'm going to go King F8. And then I'm going to go King E8. He's trying to walk his king over there. What? So, for example, let's say Fabi plays like B4. I think Vidit is going to try to get his king out of here. Like, why is he putting the king in the center? So Fabi goes after the king a little bit. The king needs to go back now. Now Queen C5, now they repeat the position. And Fabi's like, what is this guy doing? Like, can I do the same thing? King D7 is not going to happen right away because it loses a pawn. But, like, why is Vidit putting his king in the center of the board? Well, Fabi now decides to open up his own king. Rook e4, and the position is getting really complicated. No queen trade. Vidit plays c5. Rook e5, knight c6. Nice move by Fabiano, and he picks up a pawn. And those pawns were weak for a long time, and now the king runs all the way. It's finished its journey. Fabi was winning here. If he had just gone for it with b4 and maybe b5, b4, bishop a4, but he slowed his play, and they get to the 40th move, and he's still doing very well. He gets another chance, and Fabi does not let this one go. He walks Vidit. Well, actually, he kind of let it go. b5 was the better move, but he was worried about this sacrifice. But there is the ridiculous defensive move, knight to g1, which I guess Fabiano did not see. Holds everything, a6, takes, all on the way. And white is completely winning. Fabi plays bishop f5, and slowly, methodically, rips apart Vidit Gujarati's king, wins his knight, and wins this game. And Fabiano Caruana is back in the mix with 7. Hikaru 7.5, Fabi with 7. All the people who have a chance to win the candidates are winning their games. Vidit, unfortunately, 2 losses in a row. He's out of the running. It's impossible to win the event now. But I think it will be like a career-defining moment for Vidit. Like, he was probably the most exciting player in this event. He still obviously has 2 rounds to go. It's not a knockout, but yeah. I said before the event that I thought Pragg would have the best chance of the 3 Indian players. That has been proven to be wrong. Gukesh is doing spectacularly, but Pragg is in the middle, and there's still some time to go. Now, we will look at all the other games as well. Pragg played Nepo today. It was a ridiculous game. I didn't even put his score there. I will. Now, here's a matchup in the women's side, which was a Spanish. Anna Muzichuk having a tournament that she's not playing up to her standards. Vaishali has had a crazy tournament. She plays an Open Spanish today. An Open Spanish, which gets very complicated. Very theoretical line. Black takes the bishop and has the bishop pair. And Muzichuk plays very aggressively, but for the first time in the event is probably out-prepared quite a lot. I mean, she is usually the one up like an hour on the clock, and she gives up a rook. Just straight up gives up a rook, and the idea is to put the knight on the dark squares, bring the bishop out somewhere, bring the rook, and Vaishali is under huge pressure from the early game, but she starts fighting back. h5, not waiting around to get steamrolled, puts the king on g8, kind of like Vidit, defends on the light squares. Look at that. The king snuck out on the back rank. A lot of walking kings today. And then she plays f6, and Anna walks in, and her pawn is going to fall. Rook e7 and dc, and Anna starts getting desperate here, trying to hold the center together. Bishop d3, disconnecting the pieces from each other. White just keeps marching forward, but black is ready. There's not much you can do there. The pawns will reach a conclusion, and actually black has complete stability here, and Anna just can't come to terms with it, really. She keeps trying to fight back, but there's no way through. She plays knight to e6, and Vaishali just defends the position. Rook e7, you can't take. You can't take like this because you lose your queen. Can't take my queen first because of this. And if you play rook e7, there's check, queen d6. We go to an endgame where black is just up a pawn, and rook d2 is on the way. And Vaishali goes to an endgame, bishop f7, calculates this out, and this is completely winning. King g3, king d6. She just has to not mess anything up. What an expertly played game from Vaishali Ramesh Babu. Bishop to g8 prevents promotion. This pawn is over here. It takes 57 moves. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. The pawn makes it, but there is a check, and the diagonals are cooked. King to b3 stops the promotion. King f5, queen b1 check. Vaishali has just won 3 games in a row. She has 5.5 out of nowhere. She had 2.5. She lost 4 games in a row. She's now won 3 games in a row. What is going on? She's having a crazy tournament, a crazy up and down event. Now, not every game is affecting the standings. The women's side, actually, only 2 people, the Chinese players actually, have a score above 50%. Like, to be 50% is 5.5 out of 11. Only 2 people are above that, right? So you kind of, and everybody else is sort of tied in the middle. This one was a quick one. This was a Catalan from Garyachkina and Humpy. And black played a6, h6, a bit of a sideline. And you could say white tried to get something going in the opening, but yeah, there was a lot of pressure on the black position. Garyachkina even sacrificed the piece here, which instead of getting taken, if queen c8 had been played, Black is just winning, apparently, because you play c5 and it's a totally dominant position. Knight e5, you're trading the bishop, the queen comes out, you even have a chance to trap the bishop in here. Humpy could have been winning in this game, but I don't know. Instead of that, we had a big simplification. Black still had massive pressure here, and here Humpy did something kind of wild. The engine gives bishop d8 with a -2 advantage for Black. It's tough to understand why, but I think it's because Black basically plays rook a6 and c6. Like bishop d8, pinning this, and white is stuck. So if you play like queen b4 trying to get out, rook a6, you're just stuck. You don't have enough time. And Humpy repeats moves and makes a draw in a completely winning position, which is kind of crazy if she was playing to win the tournament. But she just didn't see this bishop d8 idea. And I mean, I'm only seeing this bishop d8 idea because I'm analyzing the game afterward. You know, there's a chance I would have missed it as well. Kind of nuts. Bishop d8 with the idea to build this sort of barrier against this bishop because white is actually just completely stuck. But they draw. Goryachkin on 6 points, Humpy on 6 points. But they are not in the running for first place because Zhongyi is running away with the event and Tingjie is catching up to her. Lagno versus Lei. Lei goes for a French. We have an advanced French. Black needs to win this game. She needs to win this game if she's going to win the candidate. She plays a provocative line, a line where Black trades a lot of pieces in the center and then long castles, getting into a complicated back and forth slugfest with Lagno. And from the opening, white is doing very well. Black is doing very well. Bishop c6, absolutely dominant. cd5, bishop d5. Look at this position. And these pawns are coming down the board. Sniped. Queen a4, you just defend yourself. Rook d1, bishop e7, rook c1. Lei just goes g5. How is white going to deal with this? Lei is about to get 8 out of 12. She is dominating this position. White tries to fight back. Now, the best move here for Black is something really weird. It's to play a6. And in a nutshell, the idea is to play b5. So if white tries to trade bishops, you play b5, you then trade, and then you trade the queens as well. So you take your space advantage and you play this endgame. This is what the engine is saying is -3. But when you have a position like this, you just try to rip open your opponent's king. And that's what she does. And then she plays knight to d4, forcing defense. She hunts down with the pawn. She plays g4, opening up the white king. Takes, f4, bishop to h4. Now queen h7 is on the way. Not right away, but, you know, don't lose your queen. But bishop to h4, bishop e4, and Lei is completely winning. The winning idea here is queen b6. You may ask, what does that do? The pawn just goes to b3, knight f5, queen b6, knight f5, and in a nutshell, like let's say white plays a3, the idea is knight e3 check. If white tries to defend knight e3 check by taking, you take, and queen h6 is completely unstoppable. Obliteration with rook on d2. So takes, queen is coming to d2, or to d5, white's king is completely compromised. So the winning move is queen to b6. Lei plays knight f3. She sacrifices the pawn to open the king. But it's not enough. And somehow, white survives. The king just stands in the middle of the apocalypse and is like, wait a minute, I have another lease on life. And this is reminiscent of yesterday's game where Lei saved the game instead of losing. If she had played queen b6 and went that way with the knight, she wins. She just absolutely wins. The other idea of queen b5 and coming in here is winning. Knight f5, and that is the way she had to do it. Instead, she jumped in, and the white king survives. And Lei, the best she can get is a draw. She sacrifices, but this is not a winning endgame. She makes a draw. She's only at 7.5. And Zhongyi already had 7.5 to start this round. So she has to lose. And she's playing against Nurgul Salimova. And I will show you that game in a moment. Pragg before this game had 5.5 points. All right, yesterday suffering a defeat to Hikaru. And he plays a French also, and in a shocking turn of events. In the first game of the day, we had an exchange French. In this game, we also have an exchange French. And then we have one of the most idiotic looking exchange Frenches I have ever seen. Knight e7, a3? What is this? This is not chess. Why are they developing their pieces like this? Why is the white bishop not going to f4 or g5, but rather here? This looks like 500s are playing chess. But apparently this is some sort of meta because Jan is not thinking very much. He's just not. Like, he dug into his, memory palace of random meme ideas, and the knight, coming to e7. This is obviously some sort of deep preparation from both sides. Then they decide we're going to push both of our h-pawns, right? He was trying to target Prag's h-pawn. And then a couple moves later, they decide that they're both going to castle queenside. So they're not castling short at all. Pragg has an active queen. We have knight a4, and Nepo has attacking ideas over here. So if b6, queen a6, you get a massive attack brewing over there. Knight back to f8. Putting the knight in the center, also trying to copy his pawn structure because it's very good. Then he offers a queen trade. Now, taking here is bad. You double your opponent's pawns, but you give him unnecessary pressure on your pawn. So he says, no, thank you. All right? Pragg says b6. And a move later, Nepo's like, nah, let's trade the queens. So Pragg wins this opening battle for sure. Jan doesn't get, my neck is so stiff. Oh my God. I'm kind of under the weather today. So I had like a sore body like the whole day. We trade queens and the computer gives a microscopic advantage to the black position. I mean, they have a completely symmetrical structure and same side castling. So I'm not really sure what they're trying to get at. Pawn to f6, very tense. We start trading some pieces. And we go to an endgame of rooks and knights. There's a little bit of discussion to be had here, like rook f takes, rook e8, but Jan plays king d1, and Pragg doesn't play this the best way. The computer wanted him to go c6 and then bring the knight in. That's what it wanted. It was claiming this is his biggest advantage of the game at a whopping minus 0.3. But he plays king c6, and then he plays for b5. And he definitely had sustained pressure in this endgame. Jan here plays g4. The winning idea, not winning idea, the idea to play is to give up and then play knight c4, which doesn't strike me as particularly human. It was always a bit tense, this game, but Jan defends himself as he has literally every round of the candidates basically ever. And it was a little bit scary with these pawns, but Jan stops it just in time. Nothing to choose between these two guys. And I gotta tell you, probably Pragg's tournament is also over. Being 1.5 points out of first place with 2 rounds to go is an insurmountable deficit, and he could still finish with 8, and it would be an incredible result, but likely he will get 7 or 7.5. But his tournament is likely over as well, and Nepo continues to maintain first place. But he's tied with Hikaru. Now, another person that is 7.5 is Zhongyi. And like I said, in this game, if she loses, Tingjie will remain in a tie with her for first place. We go to an endgame. This is a good strategy from Nurgyul. Zhongyi loves to attack. She's a big attacking player, always looking for complications. And Nurgyul catches her in a really unpleasant position. Bishop c3, rook e1, knight c5, knight e3, e5. Black is getting absolutely walloped. Her pieces are all scattered all over the board. b6, and now she tries to fight back. She makes more weaknesses. Knight e4, knight d6 was also very powerful, putting the knight there and then trying to go there. But Nurgyul just plays knight d6 and is a pawn up. Just a healthy pawn with a totally winning position. She plays bishop c6, rook e7, kicks out the knight, and in an insane turn of events, the lowest seed and the youngest player in the women's candidates is beating the leader. Whether it's nerves, whether it's a form of pressure, like g4, hold it all down, f5 is also completely dominant, and now g4, white is completely winning f6. She starts offering trades, rook d4, bishop e5. The knight goes to c5, like the bishop is hanging, the pawn is hanging, you're gonna trade, it's totally winning. Bishop here, she trades, excellently done. b3 kicks the bishop out. Bishop e5, she's playing a perfect game. Absolutely perfect game. Bishop back to e8, g5, knight f7. Bishop d5, complete dominance. Absolute masterclass display. f6. Okay, not the best move. The better move was g6, which is tough to play because you kind of want to attack the rook. And now black just can't move anything and you play rook a1. And then you win because black can't defend this pawn. So rook here, You try to get in another way. You can also offer a knight trade, and yeah, I mean, it's complete domination. King f3, black has no king move. It's the most, the king is in jail, basically. She goes f6, takes, rook c7. She's still winning, king f2, a5. Now it's getting a little more complicated, but she's back in the driver's seat. AB, rook h4, king g8, rook g4. Okay, let's convert it. Let's bring the knight. Yep. What? Nurgul needed to just take this pawn and continue to slowly improve her position. She went bishop f7, maybe just blanking on bishop f7, knight e5, maybe blanking on the fact that rook f7, you can't take on f6. I mean, you can't defend f6. There's no way to defend it. Maybe she calculated this rook f8, knight e5, which is winning, but you don't have to do that. The rook can go anywhere. And on the 50th move of the game, after dominating from move 10, the advantage is gone, and black makes the draw. I mean, there's still a little bit of drama, and white is still playing for something. But that's it. And Zhongyi remains in first place by half a point. Oh my God. What a game from Nurgul. I don't know how she's going to sleep. And that brings me to our final game of the day. Nijat Abasov versus Gukesh. If Gukesh wins this game, he is tied for first. If he loses this game, his tournament is over. And he's going to play for a win. And he showed us that on the fourth move of the game, when in a position that has been reached hundreds of thousands of times, he has played a move nobody has ever seen before. Surrendering the entire center to Nijat, basically preventing bishop to g5, and then a few moves later, he demonstrated the other idea of the move h6, which is one of the most disrespectful pieces of preparation I've ever seen. In this position, the idea of pawn to h6, I swear to you, is to play knight to h7. This is... The chess gods of old, are the legends, may they rest in peace, are crying watching this game from the heavens. What even is that? And you know what? Nijat, to his credit, reacted perfectly and got a very nice position. But this is exactly what Gukesh wanted. A complicated game with an unconfident opponent. 45 minutes down on the clock. And all Gukesh is going to try to do is take advantage of the structure over here in the long run. That's all he needs. He creates another imbalance of giving white the bishop pair, but having the knight on the board and bringing it back and now launching an offensive on the queen side. But this is so risky. This is so risky from Gukesh. Bishop pair for his opponent, dominant position. He's infiltrating, but how is he possibly going to attack the white position? Well, the whole point of the opening was to give white two fat pawn weaknesses. And suddenly, a brilliant positional decision to trade queens, creating a mirror image pawn structure for Gukesh, is the right decision. Because without queens, black never gets mated. Without queens, it's just a matter of time until I come collect these pawns. Without queens, that knight, that idiot knight that traversed the position, is going to get back into the game, and it is going to become a hero. G5, the knight comes alive, it goes to E7, rook B8, and it's going to come back to the center of the board. It's going to plant itself on D5 in the future, or on F5 and D4, and Gukesh played this game like shades of Magnus Carlsen. He's not playing in the candidates, but I got to tell you right now, if we compare a person who takes their opponent completely out of prep in a must-win game with black, navigates the ensuing middle game like a genius, makes all the right positional decisions, and wins an endgame, that's Magnus Carlsen. That is modern-day young Magnus Carlsen. Gukesh sacrificing the pawn. You can't take it because of the fork. And by the time that white does stop the pawn, black comes in with the king and the bishop, and the hero, the freaking hero of this game. I swear to you, the script writers could not make this any better. It is the freaking H-pawn. H5, white resigns because the pawn is going to promote. That was the pawn that started everything on the fourth move of the game, sending this whole game into a frenzy of weird tactical ideas and positional ideas, and he wins the game 53 moves later by moving the same pawn here. And your standings at the end of 12 rounds literally could not be closer. Here are the standings. Lei and Tan are dominating the women's candidates. But in the open, aka the men's, Nepo, Gukesh, Nepo, Gukesh, Hikaru, and Fabiano Caruana are separated by half a point with 2 rounds to go. And before I let you go today, let me tell you the pairings. Tomorrow's a rest day. April 20th, Hikaru plays Nepomniachtchi. In the final round of the event, Hikaru plays Gukesh. I will remind you, these are the standings. He plays the people leading the tournament. Gukesh plays Firouzja and Hikaru. Those are his two. Nepo plays Hikaru and then Fabi. So in the final round, it is Fabiano with white versus Nepo with black. And in the final round, it is Hikaru versus Gukesh. This is going to be absolutely insane. This is going to be absolutely insane. See you all in a couple of days for this tournament. Tomorrow I will be uploading as usual. Get out of here.